Welcome to today's explainer. All right, let's just jump right in because we're going on a journey into the ultimate microscopic machine. We're going to completely deconstruct the biological cell. Now, I really want you to think of the cell not just as some random squishy blob of biology, but as this highly efficient, hyper-complex, tiny piece of architecture. I mean, it is literally the fundamental building block of every single living thing you've ever interacted with.
Now, you might be wondering, what's the core mystery we're tackling today? Well, cells are just incredibly tiny, right? Most of them are completely invisible to the naked eye. Yet, despite being so microscopic, they somehow perform all the basic life processes needed to keep organisms alive, growing, and reproducing. So, how is that even possible? How can something so unbelievably small manage the massive complexities of life? Well, the secret is entirely in their structure. They're absolute masterclasses in packaging and efficiency. To really unpack this, here is our quick roadmap for today. First, we'll look at general cell structure. Second, we'll compare prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Third, plant versus animal cells. And finally, number 4, where does the green earth actually come from? All right, let's kick things off with section 1, cell general structure, or what I like to call the universal chassis. Think of a cell kind of like a car. Whether it's a flashy sports car or a trusty minivan, they all have a universal chassis, right? A frame, an engine, wheels, stuff they just need to exist. Well, cells are the exact same way. Even though they come in a massive variety of shapes and sizes, depending on what their job is, they all share the 3 core components we have right here. You've got the cell membrane on the outside, the cytoplasm filling up the inside, and the genetic material safely anchored right in the center. These 3 elements, they're completely non-negotiable for life. Without them, a cell simply cannot function. So let's break down exactly what each of these crucial components actually does for us. First up is the cell membrane. So this is the outer boundary that encloses the cytoplasm. But wait, I don't want you to think of it as just some static wall or like a boring plastic bag. It's highly active. It acts as a super strict security gate for the cell. It's constantly controlling the exchange of substances between the cell and its surrounding environment. It literally decides what nutrients get to come in and feed the cell and what waste products get escorted right out. It's basically the ultimate bouncer, constantly working to keep the cell's internal environment perfectly balanced. Moving inward, we hit the cytoplasm. That's the jelly-like region sitting right there between the outer membrane and the inner nucleus. Now, a lot of people think this is just empty space or useless filler. Nope, far from it. Actually, you should picture the cytoplasm as this bustling, microscopic factory floor. This is where the actual heavy lifting happens. It's where energy is converted, where nutrients are absorbed, and where the vast majority of the cell's everyday life activities and growth processes actually take place. And finally, we reach the core, the nucleus, or, the nucleoid region, depending on the exact cell type. This is the absolute control center. It holds all the genetic material, the DNA. If the cytoplasm is our factory floor, well, the nucleus is the executive boardroom. It holds the crucial blueprints for life and directs literally all life activities. It tells the cell when to grow, exactly how to function, and when it's time to reproduce. It's for sure the brains of our tiny microscopic machine. Moving on to section 2, prokaryotic and eukaryotic, the base model versus the luxury model. Because biology rarely stops at the baseline, right? Let's compare the 2 really distinct cellular categories side by side. Look at the prokaryotic cell. This is your base model, typical of things like bacteria. It doesn't have a true nucleus. Its genetic material kind of just floats around in a general nucleoid region. There's no internal membrane system, and it only features really simple organelles, like ribosomes. It's simple, yeah, but it is incredibly effective for survival. Now, contrast that with the eukaryotic cell. This is the luxury model. It features a true nucleus that is securely protected by its very own membrane. And even more impressively, its interior is divided up into these highly organized compartments by an internal membrane system. These house highly specialized organelles that all have their own specific jobs. It is organized, it's compartmentalized, and it is totally built for complexity. And that brings us to section 3, plant and animal cells, the eukaryotic luxury builds. So within that fancy eukaryotic category, there are 2 really famous luxury builds that you interact with literally every single day. We've got animal cells and we've got plant cells. Now, because they're both eukaryotic, they both share that distinct nucleus, the protective cell membrane, and those complex internal organelles like mitochondria. But here's the catch. Evolution equipped plant cells with highly specific tools to solve the ultimate problem of being a plant. Namely, you can't exactly get up and walk around to find food or seek shelter. You can actually see these distinct bulky structures here that the animal cell is just completely missing. Let's quickly map out exactly what those unique tools are. There are 3 major structural advantages that are totally exclusive to plant cells. First up is the chloroplast. Since plants can't just go grab a snack, they have to make their own food. Chloroplasts are basically tiny solar panels that absorb sunlight to synthesize organic matter through photosynthesis. Second is the large vacuole. Think of this as a massive storage tank taking up a huge portion of the plant cell. It's used to store pigments, waste, or nutrients. And third, the cell wall. Animal cells only have that flexible membrane we talked about, but plants, they need to stand tall, and they don't have a skeleton. So they have this thick, rigid outer cell wall that provides shape and really robust structural protection. These 3 features are absolutely the defining hallmarks of plant architecture. Now, sometimes textbooks make cells look really flat and kind of empty. So here's a fantastic, practical way to visualize how incredibly tightly packed these organelles actually are in reality. You can literally build a DIY model at home. Step 1, grab a Ziploc bag. That's going to be your flexible cell membrane. If you want to make an animal cell, just use the bag. But if you want a plant cell, place that bag inside a rigid plastic container, because that container represents the hard cell wall. Step 2, fill the bag about halfway with liquid gelatin. This mimics that jelly-like cytoplasm perfectly. And step 3, just drop in various pieces of chopped vegetables to represent your nucleus, the chloroplasts, and the vacuoles, and then seal the whole thing up. Once that gelatin sets, you'll see exactly how cramped and 3-dimensional the inside of a living cell truly is. It's a game changer. Okay, final section. Section 4, where does the green Earth come from? The macroscopic impact. Let's do a complete pivot here, from the microscopic interior of a single cell straight to a breathtaking macroscopic perspective. Look at this. On one hand, we have the view of our Earth from space, featuring these massive, sprawling green continents. And on the other hand, a microscopic view of chloroplasts packed inside a single plant leaf. You know, it's so easy to look at the Earth and just see, well, nature or forests. But what you're actually seeing from outer space is pure biology at work. You are literally looking at the direct macroscopic result of one specific cellular organelle. I really want to hammer home this awe-inspiring fact for a second. The microscopic chloroplasts inside billions upon billions of tiny plant cells are entirely responsible for the massive green continents we see from space. That pigment, that incredibly cool sunlight-absorbing machinery we talked about earlier in the eukaryotic luxury build, that is exactly what gives our Earth its color. The microscopic architecture we just spent the last few minutes studying doesn't just exist in a vacuum. It aggregates, it multiplies, and it literally paints the entire surface of our planet. How crazy is that? Which leaves us with a truly fascinating thought to wrap up our explainer today. If a tiny little organelle like the chloroplast, completely invisible to the human eye, has the power to visibly color entire continents from outer space, what other microscopic structures are secretly shaping the massive world around us? What other invisible biological forces are at work out there, constantly building the reality we live in every single day? I'll let you think about that one. Thank you so much for joining me today, and hey, keep questioning the incredible architecture of life.